Hi again, everyone. We're in chapter 14 this week, a kingdom torn in two, or as I rephrased it, a divided heart leads to a divided kingdom. Because I believe a divided heart leads to a divided life. A divided heart leads to a divided couple, or a divided family, a divided church, a divided state, a divided country, a divided world. And the whole chapter there in 1 Kings seems to play out like a movie. And if you remember the days of Siskel and Ebert when they used to do the review of all the movies, they would categorize virtually every movie in 6 categories. First, they'd start with the setting. And of course, we have a great setting here. We found out from scholars that under Solomon's kingship, who was the son of David, Israel was enjoying a great time of peace and prosperity. So we have that as the kind of the backdrop for this particular chapter. We also found out that at the end of Solomon's life, he sort of spun out of control, allowed these foreign wives that he had made alliances with, began to lead him down a wrong path. They were bringing idols in. They were worshiping these idols. And Solomon just kind of crashed and burned. And that is what he sort of handed off to his son Rarebone and to one of the great scholars of their day, Jeroboam. And this divided heart continued to play a role in these guys' lives. So these are the characters. Rarebone, the son of Solomon. Jeroboam, another young man who was known for his scholarship, for his intelligence, those kinds of things. These two young kind of whippersnappers, kind of wet behind the ears, didn't have a very prolonged or enhanced resume. They got good advice from elders, but rejected that advice. Instead, took advice from a bunch of jokers that were around them, a bunch of yes men. And that's not a recipe for success. That should be a great lesson to us. That's a great recipe for disaster. We also know that in this chapter that plays out like a movie, and just like a movie, there's a point of view. And one of the great things we've learned throughout the story is that there are 2 points of view. In every chapter, every passage, we see the upper story, God's plan, overarching plan, and that is to get his people back. He wants to be in fellowship and relationship with us. But we also see the lower story, and that's the life of Rehoboam and Jeroboam this week. Or that's the life of you and me as we go week to week. And then, of course, there's the plot. We see the plot. We see that the leadership has spun out of control. It's affected their decisions. It's affected their families. It's affected their kingdom. So much so that as we get to the 5th area of critiquing and reviewing, which is the resolution isn't the one that maybe you and I would have suggested or the one that we would have landed on. The resolution is that 10 tribes will take the northern kingdom, which is everything north of just a little bit beyond Jerusalem, and then only 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, will take that southern kingdom, which only has a few miles of hilly country, just 600,000 people, not very many soldiers, maybe 150,000 soldiers, and you see it's quite a disparity between these 2 kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. So Rehoboam is left with that remnant, if you will, of Judah or Judea, as we know it. That's the place where the term Jew comes from. We'll pick that up a little bit later on. And then Jeroboam has the 10 tribes that are in the northern kingdom. And that takes us to the final area of critique, and that's the area of themes. What are the themes? Well, obviously the biggest thing to remember is that God has a plan and he's faithful to keep his promises. That's something we should never forget. We should always remember his great love for us and his desire to be faithful to the promises that he made. We also have seen the last several weeks that bad and poor choices, terrible decisions, are like dominoes. The consequences are felt for generations, even to this day. What we haven't talked much about is making positive, solid, wonderful choices and decisions. And the motion that can be set into play when we do the right thing and we follow God's law, we stay on his path, and we do the right thing. So my biggest takeaway this week is how can we avoid the divided heart? Solomon ended up with a divided heart. Obviously, Rarebone and Jeroboam learned from that not very well because they ended up having a divided heart. So I'm worried about that. How can we avoid a divided heart? And I think there's some takeaways that we ought to have. First of all, we need to resolve to make positive choices and great decisions so that we can put positive impact and positive repercussions in play. Two, we need to consider the impact of every decision, the impact on our lives, on our families, on our business, on our money, on our church, those kinds of things. Number three, we need to calculate. What will our children say of us someday, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren? What legacy will we leave? And maybe that will make a difference today in how we spend our time and our money and those kinds of things. We need to, number four, understand God's plan and do everything in our power to try to allow Him to execute it through our lives. Let's do everything in our power, ladies and gentlemen, to avoid a divided heart. And let's be a people that strives for unity.